Hello and welcome to Kickstart 2024 in Amsterdam. I am now joined by Douglas Loewe, CEO of Kao Data. And Douglas, pleasure speaking to you. You're fresh thrown into the job. I mean, and you're inheriting a company that's in frank expansion, a lot of capital being put out there, both in the UK. We'll talk about other plans elsewhere. But first of all, how's it been? It's been 8 weeks, more or less, by the day we're filming this interview. So
less than 2 months. It's been a rush. The great news is it's a really wonderful group of people. As David Bloom, the executive chairman, and I were discussing my coming aboard. For me, it's obviously a combination of honoring the past, celebrate the present, and build a big, bold vision for the future. And the history is just fantastic. The company is, this year we'll be celebrating 10 years.
Oh, wow.
And so it really is a long, slow, methodical approach to get the business going. And they've earned the right, we've earned the right to be able to now play at a higher level in terms of both scope, in terms of the breadth of our offering and also the scale. So now is our time.
just made me feel old with your 10th anniversary. I was almost there, almost at the start of it, didn't realize. I mean, when a new CEO comes into business, he brings with him different visions, different ideas on how to do things. What's your vision for Kao? I mean, we know that Kao is expanding in London, outside of London. It's expanding in Manchester. There's plans to go elsewhere on the continent. And add in the AI revolution, which you've jumped on it quite early, but things are going to quadruple, quintuple, even more than that. What's your vision for the company?
Well, a lot of it is amplification of what has been successful already. We're not going to do a right-hand turn or a left-hand turn. It's about going forward, upwards, and accelerate the pace. The customer segmentation that Kao Data has in terms of a foundational layer of the AI is in a pole leadership position. Adding on top of that, the cloud layer, because of our success in AI, the cloud providers now see us to be able to really help solve some of their business problems in some very unique locations. And because the Kao Data team had that vision to also work with the enterprise space, we already have successful customers in all three of those. And they reinforce each other. And so my vision is to be able to accelerate those three segments, not just in the UK, but to say now is really the opportunity to copy and paste the success story from the UK onto the continent, but have it be customer-led. It's really, really important to de-risk any business expansion strategy is to listen to the voice of the customer, make sure that you're following through with helping them solve their business problems, either in terms of scaling or in particular locations, but it's a customer conversation.
And then your background is also quite interesting because you spent a good time at Macquarie Group. I mean, the investment world, it's booming when it comes to digital infrastructure, especially data centers. What would you say it's the investor sentiment for digital infrastructure, or more specifically data centers, across Europe? Let's say Europe.
I've always enjoyed working for the operators, but I made a personal and professional decision to go work for Macquarie for a year to really understand what are the investors' drivers and to be able to speak fluent institutional investor or asset manager. So, and that made it really easy for me when I joined the organization at Kao Data, with Infratel being our majority shareholder, and then Legal & General as an additional institutional investor. We have a great foundation from what investors want to do. And then, of course, we had the Deutsche Bank debt refinancing, which gave us not only the debt foundation, but also an accordion facility to do a little bit of speculative investing here and there. But the investor sentiment is pretty simple. Let us know, in this case, Infratel and Legal & General, where we can get appropriate risk-adjusted returns on our invested capital. And so my job as a CEO, as a leader of the organization, is to be able to make sure that we map customer requirements to these geographic locations in this customer segmentation that I shared with you before, and capitalize on that in a way that is not asking any investor to jump off a cliff. Quite the opposite, is to be able to say, we've de-risked this for two reasons. A portfolio of customers, so we have a wide range of customers that are comfortable with us on the journey. They're blue chip, so these are not startup-y GPU as a service companies. There's going to be a few of those that will be successful, but you've got to go with the solid blue chip type of customers. In addition to a portfolio of customers, you have to have a portfolio of locations, and it can't just be the UK. Yes, we'll lead in London, we'll lead in Manchester, but when you want to have these long-term, growing old together type of conversations with your customers, it has to be a portfolio of locations. And so that's where the investors go, aha, we want to help you on that journey. We want to make sure we see the returns, but they'll back you because your story hangs together, because the strategy is not just a punt, it's not just a vision, it's backed by solid customer segmentation, a really excellent operational team, which fortunately Kao Data has at this stage, and being able to go after markets that solve for business customers' requirements.
Very interesting. I mean, my question is will that all translate into Kao? Because you are in London, you're building in Manchester. Where are you going to go next? I mean, you got into the AI bandwagon quite early on with the HPC as well. You screwed NVIDIA as a client during COVID.
Yeah,
so 2-3 years ago.
That's a great story to reinforce, because NVIDIA really wanted to make sure that it was able to launch its fastest supercomputer in the UK. The operations team of Kao Data was uniquely positioned to be able to make that happen in 18 months with the backdrop of a pandemic. So it's really our job now is to copy and paste that type of innovation, that type of customer relationship on the continent. And the methodology for doing that is twofold. We're going to go into what I call next tier cities that are where our customers are asking to help them solve for AI workloads, helping them solve for distributed cloud type of workloads, and also some very unique potential enterprise solutions. But in addition to the next tier cities, such as a Barcelona or a Berlin or a Manchester in the UK, we're also looking at what we call new neighborhoods in existing cities. Okay. And that nuance is very, very important, because we are in a position now where these existing availability zones are potentially being just as saturated, not from a power perspective, but also the network routes need to be diversified. And so we're really pleased that our customers, when they want to do AI workloads, can go into new cities, new neighborhoods in existing cities. And that's great, because when we can work with the communities to say, this brownfield site that was a factory back in in World War II can now be repurposed and be locations to be able to support these AI workloads that don't necessarily have to be in the traditional cloud availability zones. Yeah. So that's presenting some really interesting opportunities in London. It's presenting some, East London is presenting some great opportunities in Frankfurt, where there's still pockets of power, but an ability to solve for much needed space. And we're gonna exhaust that, if you will, to make sure that before we go into a true next tier city, let's really make sure that we've really looked very closely at pockets of power, pockets of really unique locations that can allow us to solve business problems sooner rather than later. Because it's all about telescoping down that delivery sooner rather than later.
I've got a few follow-up questions.
Sure.
Let's see if I don't forget the second one. The first one, the neighborhoods locales, the new neighborhoods. How does it work from a fiber perspective? What do you do with the fiber guys, or are you going to get into the dark fiber game as well? What's Kao's take? I'm thinking a bit of like Lux Connect in Luxembourg, for example. What they did in the mid-2010s when they had the data centers to do building a lot of dark fiber. Is that kind of the route you're following as well? Or?
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be excellent partners that will lead on on the fiber front. We want to make sure we say new neighborhoods. It will be a combination of map to available renewable energy.
Right. Things already there.
But already there. Yeah, we're not going to. There's the leading edge, then there's the bleeding edge. Kao Data will be on the leading edge. We're not going to go into locations that just require obscene investments in either power digs or fiber digs.
Okay, well that clears it up. Then the second one, is there a difference between next tier cities to tier 2 cities? Is that a different notion, or?
My team always.
Everyone has their own.
Yeah. I don't think anybody likes to be a second tier anything. It sounds inferior to, whereas next tier means you're going to be potentially a future tier 1. You're just next. So it's you could argue it's splitting hairs, but I believe that you have next tier cities, and those are going to be just as vibrant and just as important and potentially very exciting to solve for AI workloads, for example. But you're also going to have, my vision is there's probably going to be a company that's going to rival the market cap of an NVIDIA or even an Apple or a Microsoft or Amazon, that we just don't know their name now, that's going to come out of the pack out of nowhere and be an AI type of powerhouse. And we, the data center industry, have a responsibility to figure out how to nurture and welcome those into the environment and help them with their journey. And that's where the investors come in, to really make sure that they are taking a covered bet, but a bet nonetheless, to be able to make sure that we are widening the circle. I do believe that the drawbridge is coming down on new entrants into the data center industry. This is very, very capital intensive. These customers want to trust you, and the only way to trust you is, have you really been doing this for a while? And that's why I think we're going to see a considerable bifurcation between the haves and the have-nots, because it's tough. This is tough, heavy lifting to do.
And you still see private equity playing the biggest role when it comes to building infrastructure?
I think it's going to be a blend. I think you're going to continue to see more blue chip type of institutional investors continue to back winning horses. Private equity will come in, but when I think they see how long it takes to get the airplane off the ground and the run from the runway, in terms of getting power, getting permission, being able to get the customers lined up, it takes years. And unless you've got a real deep pockets, very, very patient, private equity backed company, there potentially will not really be able to endure the how long it takes. So I think you want to look at organizations that have been able to stand the test of time, not somebody who's just trying to capitalize on a short-term sentiment. You will get a lot of new investors, though, that will pursue the AI front, and that will be potentially disruptive. But I think at this stage, there's still, especially some of the cloud providers that are pivoting to AI, they're going to still want to go with trusted teams, that have been around for a while. That's why that's why I joined Kao Data, and that's why I think we'll be one of the trusted advisors and organizations that these cloud providers, as they move into the AI space, which is our area of expertise, will embrace and go on that journey together.
Okay. I would love to still talk about the Mediterranean mesh, but before we get into it, there's been some conversation at this conference that Europe is lagging behind a little bit in terms of AI builds compared to North America, for example. Whilst we're having announcements of 800 megawatts, 1 gigawatt, even 2 gigawatt campuses, here we're not having that because of not available power. What's your take on that, and how far behind are we, and when are we going to catch up?
I don't think we'll necessarily ever have to catch up.
We don't need to?
We don't need, even if you're a fast follower. I mean, the one thing, again, despite my distinctly retained American accent, I've lived now in Europe 30 years, and I consider myself a European. But if you go to Texas, you can just build and build and build in one direction.
Land.
There's just land, and there's also a very, let's put it this way, aggressive, permissive type of government environment that just says,
tax benefits.
Just go for it. Build and the power is readily, there's power points, pinch points in the States now, but I think what we have as an opportunity in Europe is to embrace a truly distributed compute environment. So instead of it all being in Frankfurt, London, Amsterdam, Paris, Frankfurt, London, Amsterdam, and Paris, we are really going to see Manchester come into its own. You're going to see Berlin really take off. It's already happened in France with Marseille as a comfortable alternative, and that's the, if you will, arguably the leader, the hub of the initial Mediterranean mesh. But I think we're going to see a distributed compute environment that will be both resilient and also adequate to support the AI workloads and the cloud workloads. It doesn't have to be as large as some of these 300 to 500 megawatt campuses in the States. Europe can solve for that by distributing it. Just have it be much more distributed.
Let's make sure we don't create more acronyms, because someone today was talking about FLAPD, BMMOS. So Berlin, Madrid, Milan, Oslo, Stockholm, and we don't need more of that.
We do have to be a little bit careful about that. FLAs, as in four-letter acronyms, and then TLAs, three-letter. It can get a little bit old, and even FLAPD. I think I hope we just have FLAPD, and then we have some other locations. I'm with you on that. I agree. I totally agree.
Picking up on the Mediterranean mesh, so this is very much to do with subsea cable landing points. Can you explain a little bit more what because you've written about this. So what is the Mediterranean mesh? I can almost not say the word.
It's a vision where we recognize that it goes back to this distributed compute. It doesn't have to be one location with 500 megawatts. We can distribute that, and instead of it all being on the continent, which it will be, my vision is we can do it, and I even use the term federated Mediterranean mesh. It doesn't have to be one company. Kao Data can put an alternative to Marseille in, let's say, Barcelona, and then one of our sister companies, part of our investors, we have NED in Tel Aviv. So you talked to David Bloom, our executive chairman. He's also leading the charge in Israel. I have a relationship with the African Infrastructure Investment Managers, and they're doing some great things in Morocco, which if we put these compute locations right on the Mediterranean, our customers can use those platforms to solve for moving AI workloads amongst that. And what's nice about those 3 locations, whether it be Casablanca, Tel Aviv, and Barcelona, the fiber's there. And so the ability to just put the routers on it and be able to light those and be able to have that be a distributed compute mechanism allows us to be able to answer back to the states and say, we don't have to have it all in one location, it can be distributed. Now don't get me wrong, I think Amsterdam would be a great location now that it feels like the sentiment for the communities are saying, wait, we want AI to be here. We want to have workloads that are solving cancer, solving for new drugs. We want those to be as part of our community. But we have to, as good corporate citizens, recognize it's going to be a combination of some big compute, but not at the expense of the communities, where people need, electricity for their homes as well, in somewhere like Amsterdam. But then let's get creative as an industry and solve this, what I call the federated Mediterranean mesh, which is have it be distributed all along the Mediterranean. And it doesn't have to just be Kao Data. In fact, quite far from it. Let's have there be part of the entire community of data center services providers be participatory in that and raise our visibility and say we're sharing this AI revolution with multiple countries in multiple cities, which I just think is going to be accretive not only for our customers, not only for our communities, but also the investors that back us to go on this journey.
Yeah. As you were talking, it reminds me a little bit of what some players got into together during the Brexit stage. When people on the UK side were partnering up with European operators to try and really build that bridge in a way. But this is a much more elaborate, much more wider mesh of partnerships.
It really is truly embracing the concept of partnership. This is heavy lifting. You've got to have investors who are going to support you, and you need a variety of investors. Your debt lenders, your lenders need to be part of that journey, and it can be highly distributed. And I think if you do it right, you're de-risking it, and frankly, you're also accelerating digital transformation, which is good for all of us. Yeah.
Well, public-private partnerships are growing, and they're going to carry on growing in this space. I was going to ask, and this is probably the question you're going to say, well, I can't tell you that. London, Manchester, where else? Where would be the pins on the map, both UK, outside of UK? Can we talk about geographies, or is it still early?
They're visions, because they're hard. This is hard to do, and so some of this effort that we've been embarking on has been in the works for 3, 4, 10 years. Yeah. So I'm very comfortable saying that Kao Data would like to be able to help solve the AI next chapter here in Amsterdam, as an example. I think that with that proviso of new neighborhoods in existing cities, there's still room to solve customer business problems in Frankfurt and in Berlin. The double dot strategy, we're doing it very well with London and Manchester in the UK. That's double dot strategy that in Germany. And I do think that even though there's a little bit of saturation going on in Madrid, if you combine Barcelona with the Mediterranean mesh and Madrid, you potentially can be providing highly relevant business conversations with customers that are not only within Europe, but also the continued bridging of the Atlantic of U.S. headquartered companies coming to Europe. There's still significant room in the established markets, but even though there's a lot of players, what customers are looking for is quality, the ones that have really solved for long-term success, have de-risked their supply chains, that have those relationships in place, and will be part of the winners versus some organizations that may not make it.
I'm almost letting you go, but just quickly follow up on that. One, do you have timelines? Two, is this mostly going to be very organic, so buying land, building it up, or could it be buildings that you repurpose to what you want to do? Just give it a bit more details.
It's a great question. It is definitely a blended strategy. We have done sale and leaseback where we've actually gone in and had a large financial institution say, "You guys are in the data center business. We're in the banking business. Go, take this asset and move it forward." And of course, we were able to repurpose it and be able to squeeze in more megawatts for other customers. So that's an example of not a pure greenfield. There will be some what I would call mini acquisitions, where instead of us buying the company and saying thank you, we're actually having them come along for the journey and having them amplify their initial success story. So we'll have that approach, and greenfield where we think we've able to telescope down the time frame for delivering, because we either have green power ahead of other players, or it allows us to be able to comfortably go vertical, generate revenue in the next 2 to 3 years. Anything beyond 5 years at this stage is just a little bit, well, we don't have to, because we have that portfolio of assets that are either organic, inorganic, or sale and leaseback that allows us to be able to grow sooner rather than later.
Okay. Well, we'll be here to go through the journey with you and see what happens.
I enjoy our conversations. I look forward to...
I've got one more last question.
Okay.
It's, I mean, because we are Kickstart 2024, so what do you think of the conference? What does the conference mean to you as an attendee? What does it mean for Kao? And then when we come back in 12 months' time, 2025, what do you think is going to be the topic on everyone's mouth?
Without a doubt, this business is about relationships. And the one thing that's great about PTC, when we last caught up there, and here at Kickstart, or whether it be Cannes with the events that occur there, it's about two things: reconfirming our vows as we all work together in a collaborative manner, and making new connections, and fully embracing partnership, and that is recognizing you can't do it yourself. All by yourself. You've got to bring along kindred spirits. So I think what will be, when we get together again, we'll see a bifurcation in the industry. We're going to see some organizations that are growing, successful, solving customer problems. Their reputation is being enhanced. And I think you're probably going to see some organizations that just either weren't funded properly, or were maybe a little too late to the game, and therefore aren't able to really deliver on their promise. And so I have no idea who those different camps are going to be, but by virtue of how much this industry is evolving, we're going to see that bifurcation.
Okay, interesting. Well, we'll be here again in 12 months' time, and we'll see each other before that anyway, because things are moving so fast every 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, no, thank you for
your catch up so much.
Thank you for your leadership in this industry in terms of really helping us all communicate, share our story, because we are a good news organization. We're solving cancer in our data centers. We're helping map genomes. We're and you're bringing us the opportunity, a mouthpiece to be able to share that is a big part of making sure that what we're doing is a force for good, and it's just being shared in the industry.
Well, that's very kind of you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
As for your home, thank you for watching, and do check our websites and social media for more timely news from the digital infrastructure sector worldwide. At Tech Capital, you lead, we report. Bye for now.